On her 50th birthday, Linda found a leather notebook duct taped to her Toronto condo door. No note, just a coffee stain shaped like Florida. Inside, crisp pages whispered possibility. Her kid's old room echoed. But that lit virtual journaling circle invite tucked between pages. Game changer. Ink became her rebellion against silence, each scribble a middle finger to monotony. Community center yoga moms gossiped, Linda's pen danced with secrets bolder than their kombucha. Empty nest. More like open sky. 298 chars, no / on her 50th birthday, woman found a leather-bound notebook tucked between maple-scented candles at Kensington Market stall. Its pages smelled faintly of her father's old briefcase, that comforting whiff of ambition and shoe polish. She'd laughed when vendor called it a soul mirror, but by midnight, she was hunched over it like a detective solving her own case, ballpoint hovering. Empty nest silence had a sound, ice cubes clinking in a glass 3 rooms away. Her son's abandoned skateboard still rattled on windy nights, a ghost trick she refused to fix. Toronto's community centers buzzed with pottery classes and Zumba, but she moved through them like a tourist, smiling brochures but never staying. Then she stumbled into a virtual journaling circle, 50 and flourishing, lit with pixelated warmth from women who'd turned their what now into watch this. First, her entries read like grocery lists. Bought salmon. Missed bus. Remembered Matt's first tooth. But weeks in, she wrote about fear gnawing her, becoming one of those women who shrinks into her cardigan, her stories fading like ink in rain. That night, she dreamt of her father's briefcase again, stuffed not with contracts but with half-finished crossword puzzles. She woke grinning. Next morning, Linda marched into a community center and signed up for memoir writing, no refunds. Then spilled chai on her notebook's pristine cover. Stain looked like Australia. Perfect. By spring, she'd filled 60 pages with rebellions, singing off-key in line Tim Hortons, wearing polka dots to a bank meeting. Virtual circle ladies cheered her on with heart emojis. Ice cubes still clinked, but now they sounded like a toast. On her 50th birthday, woman found a leather notebook tucked inside a gift bag from her sister. Its pages smelled faintly of cedar, its cover worn but sturdy, like hands that had held stories before hers. First, she doodled grocery lists, half-hearted to-dos, then abandoned it on a shelf. Weeks later, clearing out her son's old room, she tripped over a box of his childhood art. Knees creaking, 50 was not new 30, no matter what magazines claimed, she sat amid crayon suns and lumpy clay animals, throat tight. That evening, she cracked open notebook and wrote a single line, "Today, I miss his sticky fingers." A local community center flyer caught her eye next morning, virtual journaling circle, stories without judgment. Woman hesitated. Tech baffled her. Last Zoom call, she'd accidentally flipped her camera, revealing a ceiling fan and her startled cat. But loneliness outweighed pride. She logged on, fumbling with mute buttons, and found 12 faces glowing back, a retired teacher in Winnipeg, a widow from Atlanta who joked about dating apps, a young mom in Denver scribbling between baby naps. Their facilitator, Rosa, a former librarian with silver braids, tossed prompts like confetti, write about a smell that teleports you. Or a time you failed spectacularly. Linda's pen flew. Weeks in, she noticed shifts. Mornings felt less hollow. She began stealing moments to jot down sidewalk scenes, a barista's laugh, cherry blossoms dusting sidewalks like pink snow. One entry detailed her disastrous attempt sourdough, R.I.P., starter. You deserved better. Another, memories of her mother's perfume, Chanel No. 5 spritzed on Sundays. Notebook became a compass, its leather softening with use, edges frayed from being stuffed into purses and picnic baskets. Rosa nudged her to share aloud. Linda's voice trembled recounting her son's first day of kindergarten, how she'd sobbed in parking lot, then celebrated with a solo movie and smuggled wine. Group erupted in cheers. That's lit, Linda, crowed Denver mom. Later, Rosa privately messaged, your stories stitch us together. By summer, Linda led a prompt herself, describe a moment you felt brave, even if it was tiny. As screens filled with nods and scribbling, she realized grief hadn't vanished. But now it shared space with other things, a recipe for lavender shortbread, a haiku about subway musicians, quiet thrill of her words becoming someone else's mirror. Notebook, once blank, held proof, she was still here, still unfolding. And that, as Rosa would say, was everything. On her 50th birthday, woman found a leather notebook tucked between dish towels in a clearance bin, thick, unlined pages smelling faintly of cedar. She scoffed first. Who wrote by hand anymore? But something about its stubborn solidity spoke to her. That night, after microwaving a sad frozen lasagna, she uncapped a pen and stabbed first page. Well, here we go. Toronto's autumn wind rattled her condo windows as she scribbled. Not about missing her daughter's laughter in next room, too raw, but about community center's new pottery class. How her hands, slick with clay, remembered shaping Halloween costumes years ago. Words spilled faster, ink blotting where she pressed too hard. Next morning, she woke lighter, as if she'd left a window open in her chest. Doubts crept in by week 3. 50-year-old woman scribbling grocery lists with feelings, how lit. She almost tossed notebook into a donation bin. But then an email popped up, virtual journaling circle, no experts, just stories. Woman clicked, expecting cringe. Instead, she found women from Boise to Belfast typing fragments of their lives. A retired teacher in Florida wrote about her beagle's obsession with lemons. A widow in Dublin confessed she'd worn her late husband's socks to pharmacy. She snorted, then typed, "Today I yelled a parking meter." It didn't apologize. Weeks passed. Her entries grew reckless, rants about bad TV, sketches of squirrels fighting over bagels. She taped in a receipt from her daughter's favorite sushi spot, corners curled like old postcards. One evening, she caught herself humming while writing. Leather cover, now dented from being shoved into purses and dropped on subway seats, felt like a co-conspirator. By winter, Linda's journal had become a living thing. She filled margins with arrows and asterisks, circled words twice when they rang true. Some days were just weather reports and coffee stains. Others held revelations so quiet they barely made a sound, like realizing she'd stopped counting how long since her last text from campus. Community Center's holiday potluck, a woman admired Linda's earrings. "Thanks," Linda said, then paused. "My kid picked them. She's got better taste than me." No lump in her throat. Just a fact, floating between paper plates. Walking home, snow crunching under boots, she thought about how grief and joy could share same page without smudging. Notebook in her bag weighed nothing all. On her 50th birthday, she found a leather notebook tucked inside a gift bag from her daughter, its pages blank as quiet house around her. First, she scoffed, what could scribbling in a book do against ache of an empty nest? But boredom won. She cracked it open, pen hovering before ink spilled in messy, honest waves. Words became confessions, then revelations. One entry turned to 10, then 50, until that notebook held more than memories, it held her voice, louder than she'd ever dared. Then came gutsy move. A flyer her local community center advertised a virtual journaling circle. Why not? She signed up, half expecting woo-woo vibes and awkward silences. Instead, she found women like her, some grieving, some thriving, all searching. When moderator flaked last minute, Linda's fingers flew to her keyboard. "I'll lead." No prep, no plan, just raw, unfiltered truth. She guided them through prompts, her leather notebook propped open like a sacred text. One skeptic, a sharp-tongued retiree named Marjorie, rolled her eyes on screen. Woman smirked. "Try it. Worst case, you waste 5 minutes and hate me after." Marjorie grumbled but wrote. And wrote. Silence. Then, a whisper, "Damn. That actually helped." Zoom chat exploded. Lit. More. Linda's heart hammered. She'd stumbled into magic. Weeks later, her workshop went viral after a participant posted a screenshot of she mid-laugh, leather notebook gleaming under lamplight, captioned, "This queen made me cry, in a good way." Overnight, requests poured in, libraries, senior groups, even a glossy magazine wanting her late-blooming wisdom. Standing before her now-packed virtual room, she grinned. 50. More like fierce. That skeptic Marjorie. Front row, grinning back. As applause echoed through her headphones, Linda traced notebook's worn edges. No longer just pages, it was a bridge. She'd turned loneliness into light, one messy word at a time. And hell if that wasn't a plot twist worth writing about. On her 50th birthday, Linda found a leather notebook, thick, buttersoft, smelling faintly of possibility. First, she scribbled grocery lists between tear-stained pages, mourning quiet halls where laughter once lived. But one rainy Toronto afternoon, she spilled her heart onto paper, raw and real. Words became bridges, not walls. Soon, Linda's journal morphed into something lit. She joined a virtual journaling circle, screen glowing with faces from Brooklyn to Brisbane, all stitching stories into digital ether. Her quirky habit: doodling rogue maple leaves in margins, a nod to home. Between sips of steeped tea, she guided newcomers with gentle prompts, write unsaid. Burn it after if you must. Community centers noticed, invited her to lead workshops. Silver-haired women clutched pens like lifelines, their pages rustling like autumn's last stand. That leather notebook, once a vault for grief, now bulged with pressed flowers, ticket stubs, and a growing manifesto. Building community through creativity isn't about filling empty spaces, it's about lighting them up. Linda's nest wasn't empty, it just had better Wi-Fi. Grab your pen, your story's waiting. No edits, no apologies.